The rain had been falling for 3 straight days over the edge of the city. Not the gentle kind of rain that taps softly against windows and makes people sleepy. This rain was cold, angry, and endless. It turned roads into rivers and alleys into black pools of mud. At the far edge of town, beyond the warehouses and broken train tracks, sat the old municipal dump. People called it the mountain. A mountain of rusted metal, rotten food, shattered furniture, and forgotten things nobody wanted anymore. And hidden between those piles of garbage was a little blue van. Inside the van sat 7-year-old Lily Harper, clutching her stuffed rabbit with trembling hands. Her little brother Noah slept beside her under a thin blanket, his cheeks pale from hunger. The van smelled like wet clothes and old bread. Lily stared at the phone in her hands. The battery was at 2%. She remembered what her mother had once told her. If something bad ever happens and I can't wake up, call emergency services. Lily looked toward the front seat. Her mother hadn't moved in hours. Mama, she whispered again. No answer. The rain hammered the roof. Lily's tiny fingers shook as she dialed 911. The line crackled. Emergency response center. What's your emergency? Lily swallowed hard. Daddy, we're at the dump. There was silence for half a second. The operator frowned. Sweetheart, where are your parents? My mommy won't wake up. The operator immediately sat upright. What's your name, honey? Lily. And how old are you? 7. Okay, Lily. Stay calm for me. Is your mother breathing? Lily leaned toward the front seat. I think so. The operator began tracing the call location, but the signal kept jumping. Can you tell me where you are exactly? At the dump, Lily repeated softly. Near the big broken crane. At that same moment, 20 miles away in downtown Chicago, Billionaire CEO Daniel Mercer stood inside the top-floor conference room of Mercer Global Industries. He was in the middle of the worst week of his career. Stock prices were collapsing. Board members were panicking. Reporters circled like vultures after news leaked about layoffs in several divisions. Daniel loosened his tie and rubbed his temples. At 42 years old, he had everything money could buy and absolutely no peace. Then his assistant rushed inside. Sir, there's a systems issue downstairs. Daniel barely looked up. Handle it. The emergency support network routed a call through the backup communications servers. Daniel frowned. Mercer Global owned dozens of technologies, including a telecommunications subsidiary that supported emergency overflow lines during storms. Usually the rerouting happened automatically. But tonight, a server failure sent one live emergency audio feed into the executive monitoring room. Before anyone could disconnect it, a child's trembling voice echoed through the speakers. Daddy, we're at the dump. Every person in the room froze. Daniel looked up sharply. The operator's voice came through. Lily, stay on the line. Then the child whispered something so soft it almost disappeared beneath static. My brother is cold. Daniel's chest tightened. Something about her voice pierced straight through him. He walked toward the speaker. Can they trace the call? A technician shook his head nervously. Signal keeps bouncing because of the storm. The operator kept talking gently. Lily, do you see any signs or buildings? There's a red truck with no wheels, and a dog outside. Daniel's jaw clenched. He suddenly remembered something. Years ago, Mercer Global had purchased land near the city dump for a failed recycling project. He knew that place. He turned instantly. Get me the coordinates. Sir, now. The room exploded into motion. Within 3 minutes Daniel Mercer was in the back of his black SUV speeding through the storm with 2 security vehicles behind him. Rain blurred the windshield. His driver glanced nervously into the mirror. Sir, emergency responders are already searching. They're searching the wrong sector. How do you know? Daniel stared into the darkness outside. Because poor people disappear in places rich people never look. The driver fell silent. 40 minutes later the convoy reached the dump. The smell hit immediately. Rotting garbage, oil, smoke. The headlights swept across mountains of trash. Police cars searched the northern entrance, but Daniel pointed another direction. There. The driver blinked. Sir, that area's flooded. Daniel opened the door before the SUV fully stopped. Mud soaked his expensive shoes instantly. Security guards shouted after him, but Daniel ignored them and climbed through the rain toward the far edge of the dump. Then he saw it. A tiny blue van half sunken in mud. A weak flashlight flickered inside. Daniel ran. He yanked the side door open. A little girl screamed and clutched her brother protectively. "It's okay," Daniel said quickly. "You're safe now." Lily stared at the stranger in the raincoat. Her lips trembled blue from cold. "You came." Daniel looked toward the front seat. The mother was unconscious, burning with fever. "Call an ambulance now," he shouted. Security rushed forward. Daniel removed his coat and wrapped it around Noah. The little boy stirred weakly. "Hungry," he whispered. Daniel felt something crack deep inside him. Not because of the child's voice. Because he suddenly remembered his own childhood. 30 years earlier, before the billions. Before the skyscrapers. Before private jets and television interviews. Daniel Mercer had once been a hungry child too. His father drank away every paycheck. His mother worked 2 jobs. Some nights they slept in their car beside factories because rent was overdue. He remembered the shame, the cold, the invisible feeling, and standing in the rain beside that garbage mountain, Daniel realized something horrifying. He had spent 20 years becoming the kind of rich man who forgot children like this existed. The ambulance finally arrived. Paramedics carried the mother onto a stretcher. "What's her condition?" Daniel asked. "Severe pneumonia, dehydration, exhaustion." Lily grabbed Daniel's sleeve. "Is mommy gonna die?" The billionaire knelt in the mud so their eyes were level. "No," he said softly. "Not tonight." At the hospital, doctors worked for hours stabilizing the mother, Emily Harper. Daniel stayed. His board members called non-stop. He ignored every call. Around 3 a.m., Lily sat curled in a hospital chair eating soup while Noah slept nearby. Daniel watched her quietly. "You're very brave," he said. She shook her head. "I was scared. Brave people are scared too." She looked at him carefully. "Are you a doctor?" Daniel almost laughed for the first time in weeks. "No." "Then why did you come?" The question hit harder than she realized. Why had he come? A billionaire CEO had no reason to crawl through a flooded dump in the middle of the night. Yet here he was. Because for one brief second, hearing her tiny voice say, "Daddy," he had felt like the entire world stopped. And because somewhere deep inside, the little poor boy he used to be had answered her call before the billionaire ever could. The next morning, news spread everywhere. CEO found child at city dump during storm. Reporters swarmed the hospital. Daniel hated media attention, but this story exploded online. People wanted to know why one of the richest men in America personally searched a landfill for strangers. The truth was simpler than anyone expected. He couldn't ignore her voice. Inside the hospital room, Emily finally woke up. Weak and pale, she panicked immediately. "My children. They're safe," Daniel said gently. Tears flooded her eyes when she saw Lily and Noah sleeping nearby. "Oh, thank God." Emily tried sitting up. "I'm sorry, I don't know how this happened." Daniel pulled a chair closer. Slowly, painfully, the story came out. After her husband died in a construction accident, bills piled up. Medical debt destroyed their savings. Rent increased. Her second job disappeared. Shelters were full. Eventually the van became their home. The dump wasn't random. People left discarded food there. Sometimes old blankets. Sometimes bottles to recycle. Daniel listened silently. Not once did he interrupt. When she finished, Emily looked down in shame. "I know how it sounds." "No," Daniel said quietly. "I know exactly how it sounds." That afternoon Daniel made a decision that shocked everyone around him. Instead of returning to corporate meetings, he canceled his entire week. Then he called the mayor. By evening Mercer Global announced a new emergency housing initiative worth $50 million. Temporary shelters, job placement programs, medical assistance, food support. The media praised him endlessly. But Daniel knew the truth. He wasn't saving the city. A little girl had saved him. Days later, Lily and Noah moved into a small furnished apartment paid for anonymously. Emily received treatment and a new job through Mercer Global's community outreach division. Daniel visited occasionally, always bringing groceries or books. One evening Lily handed him a crayon drawing. It showed a giant man standing in the rain beside a tiny blue van. Above them she had written, "Thank you for hearing me." Daniel stared at the paper for a long time. Then he folded it carefully and placed it inside his suit jacket. Years passed. The housing initiative expanded nationwide. Thousands of families received help. Business analysts called it one of the most compassionate corporate programs in modern history. But nobody knew the real beginning. It started with one emergency call. And one sentence. "Daddy, we're at the dump." 10 years later, Daniel stood backstage at a charity gala while cameras flashed beyond the curtains. A young girl approached the microphone on stage. She was 17 now, confident, bright-eyed, strong. Lily Harper smiled at the audience. "Most people think heroes wear suits or uniforms," she began. "But sometimes heroes answer phones." The crowd listened silently. "When I was 7 years old, my little brother and I lived in a van at the city dump. I thought nobody in the world cared whether we survived." She glanced toward backstage where Daniel stood frozen. But one man listened. The audience turned as Daniel slowly stepped into the light. Lily's voice cracked slightly. "He didn't just save us. He saved thousands of families after us." The room erupted into applause. Daniel hated public attention, but this time he couldn't move. Because across the room he suddenly spotted something hanging beside the stage. Framed behind glass was Lily's old crayon drawing. The one he had kept all those years. A reporter later asked Daniel the same question the world had asked for a decade. "Why did you go yourself that night?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he answered honestly, "Because every child who asks for help deserves someone who listens." He paused. "And because no child should ever believe the world threw them away like garbage." Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows of the gala hall. But somewhere far beyond the lights and cameras, beyond the skyscrapers and headlines, stood the old dump. Empty now, silent, forgotten by almost everyone, except one billionaire, and one little girl who made a phone call. That changed both their lives forever.